May I please have your full and undivided attention? It is time for the Paranormal Rundown. Hello, this is Cedric Dankworth Smythe. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all fans of the paranormal, the supernatural, the unusual, the entertaining, the terrifying, the horrifying, and those things that go bump in the night and in the daytime too. This is the one and only Paranormal Rundown, where the lads, the gang of nerds, choose from over 2,700 carefully curated paranormal topics. This is the 20th and final episode of Season 1. And my goodness, do we have a doozy for you tonight. We'll be talking about those things in the woods we don't talk about. We'll be talking about Appalachia and all the things hidden within. Yowies. In fact, a lot about Yowies. Lougaroos, Big Feet, Bigfoot, Bigfoots, Dogman, special dessert beverages, the dreams of hell or Sheol, Star Wars versus Star Trek, a demon for every sin and then some extra ones too, the cursed lands, the suicide forest of Japan, called Aokigahara, Gettysburg, Antietam, and a topic never discussed on any program ever before, Dingylacines. That's something between a dingo and a thylacine. The lads, the gang of nerds, only dialed one topic through the randomizer this evening. They normally do 3 or 4. However, the flow of the conversation was so enjoyable and titillating that they just let the randomizer slide. I would suggest that you write in your complaints to the gang of nerds. They will probably ignore them, but you can give it a try.
Hello, everybody who is a fan of the Paranormal Rundown, a fan of the supernatural, a fan of the unusual, a fan of those things which do not fit into other categories. This is episode 20 of the Paranormal Rundown and the end of the first season of the Paranormal Rundown. We will probably take a slight break after this, kind of reevaluate our priorities and get in touch with our inner children and that kind of thing. And we will be back again for season 2 as rapidly as we can. You know how the rundown works. We have 2,376 topics that we choose from randomly. You know, that's a lot of topics, man. And we choose 6 at a time, and then we talk about whatever seems most interesting out of those 6 topics. So let's just get going. Tonight, we have Father Birdsong, Father Michael Birdsong, coming to us from Thomaston, Georgia. We've got Dave Griffith coming from us from somewhere in Florida. We have JJ Johnson coming to us from the great state of Northern Virginia. And we've got Vic Hermanson in York, Pennsylvania. Okay, our first...
By the way, my inner child's name is Peter.
Peter?
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know what mine's name is.
Does he eat pumpkins, JJ?
No, Peter Pumpkin. I mean, Peter Cottontail.
Cottontail? Yeah. Oh, come on. No.
I couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
Peter
I knew exactly what he was about to say.
Peter Cottontail.
Right out of the gate.
Okay, no more for me. That's it. I just had to say it. Okay.
Thanks, JJ.
It's out of my system now.
Well, I'm actually internally twins, so I'm Flopsy and Mopsy.
Ooh, there you go.
Hey, guys, do I have permission to be sappy for just a moment?
You can be as sappy as you wish.
Okay.
I didn't really know it took permission.
Well, no, it's just you guys know what happened today, and I was just thinking. I said, man, I feel terrible. but I knew that we were doing this tonight, and I just want to echo what JJ said last week, that you guys, I was looking forward to tonight.
Oh, me too.
I needed it.
Absolutely.
I needed it. So
same here.
And I mean it from the bottom of my heart. These shows and us even getting together beyond the show just means the world to me. And it's hard to find good people these days. It's hard to find a good friend. It's hard to find a good brother. Mm-hmm. And the priest in me wants to, remind us of Proverbs 17:17 that a friend loves at all times. We all have acquaintances, but it says, but a brother is born for times of adversity. And that's what you guys have turned out to be for myself, for Josh. JJ's already acknowledged that. And I just wanted to say that I really appreciate each and every one of you. I'm done.
Well, the feeling is absolutely mutual. In fact, just to pull the curtain back a little bit on our behind the scenes, we tried to get together at the end of last week, and Father Birdsong was not able to join us. And I was feeling crappy. I didn't feel like doing it, but the spirit wasn't there. And I think that's because you were not with us for that night. And this feels so much more natural, so much better. It's suddenly having all of your limbs as opposed to missing an arm. So,
yeah.
Anyway, I'm done being sappy as well. I apologize.
That's awesome. I appreciate that.
Well, sorry, I get to take a turn of being sappy too.
Okay.
Really, none of this would exist had there not been Southern Demonology.
Very true.
Yeah, Southern Demonology was... I mean, look, I remember the night I was washing dishes, and it was one of those days where I had been lazy, and there were more than one days of dishes there to wash. Sorry if your opinion of me has gone down, but I don't always like washing dishes, and sometimes I'll let them pile up.
I understand that.
I'm probably the only person in the world that does that.
Oh, yeah.
If you are,
Right.
then I would be shocked. Because I fit into that category.
But I'm looking over at this big honking pile of dishes, and I'm thinking, oh, man, that's going to take a while. I need a podcast. I need something I can listen to. And so I think I probably typed in demon. And, out of the first 5 or so, Southern Demonology. That's a weird name. I wonder what that means. Southern Demonology. All right, let's listen to that. And so I spent most of the next hour and a half listening to Southern Demonology, which, if you know the show, is about 3 episodes. And I thought, I like this. This is weird.
Accurate.
This is weird. This is cool. And so then he was talking about Discord, and I said, what is Discord? I don't even know what Discord is. And so I went and found Discord. Oh, that's what Discord is. So then I sent JJ a communication, a verbal letter, a recorded letter. And everything has blossomed and grown from that. So, JJ, you are the progenitor of everything in this entire realm.
Well, all I have to say is, I love the podcast, not for what it has brought to me outside of connections. And it has spawned phenomenal friendships with you, Vic, with Dave, with Father Birdsong, and Josh, and the whole crew out of Discord. And I have never been more thankful for doing what I call a very expensive hobby masquerading as a second job.
It certainly can be an expensive hobby. But
Well, and I think we also, while we're talking about all this,
waxing emotional.
Yes, it is like a brotherhood.
Amen.
For those that don't know, it's not like we see each other in our everyday lives, but we talk daily. We are in touch through the Discord, through private group, whatever, all the time. and it is like a brotherhood. We know what's going on in each other's lives and all of that. And JJ was definitely the genesis of all of that. And, you know, and then Vic, the root for the Paranormal Rundown. And,
Absolutely.
you know,
I was missing content one day, and I reached out to Vic, and I'm like, Vic, you got to help me. Come on the show again. And he's like, well, why don't we do something a little bit different? And that kind of was the start, and it's been a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Well, and I'm so grateful that you guys dragged me in on that. You know, it was
me too, yeah.
It was an honor to be invited to it, and it is, I mean, it's something that I enjoy the heck out of. And I listen to all of our episodes about 3 times before they go out, so I've got to like it.
Yeah, you are the quality control expert. So, okay, I have 6 very good topics here in front of us. I guess I could have done the F9 stuff, but just assume, you know, use mental theater, theater of the mind for me pressing F9. And the first 6 topics are the Genesis Decalogue versus the Exodus Decalogue. Number 2, amazing coincidences like finding a wedding ring or your wedding ring in a fish that you catch. Number 3, game consoles that sense ghosts. Number 4, something I've heard many people tell me since I've spent so much time out hiking. There are things in these woods we don't talk about. It's best if you just leave them alone. They'll probably leave you alone. Probably. Number 6, we are metaphysical beings having a human experience versus we are illusion-laden flesh bags fantasizing about metaphysics. What is more correct? And the last one is theistic finitism. Boy, I screwed that one up.
Finito.
I like the woods.
You like the woods. All right.
All right.
JJ, I was just certain you were going to like jump like a eagle on the various decalogues.
No.
I was wanting to do that one, but yeah, let's go to JJ's.
Well, we can do several, but
Okay.
To me, like, I feel like you're almost carving out a section of each rundown. Well, here's a biblical topic. We can throw a bone to JJ and he can chew on it for a few minutes and then he'll be satisfied and we'll go about our day. And I would rather not have to do that.
Okay, that's good.
All right.
Well, JJ, we've never
talk about
forced
the
any,
woods.
we've never forced anything.
Oh, no. I don't mean it like that. I mean it more like a charity case for me than it is for anything else. But anyway, so there is a gigantic movement on TikTok currently, and it's been going on for at least a year, if not more. And it's all about Appalachia.
Appalachia.
Yeah, and what is being said is, oh God, the woods of Appalachia, there are just things that you never ever do. You don't walk in. If you hear something chasing you, you don't ever run. If you hear voices calling out to you, you don't respond.
You do not respond.
And so don't get me wrong. So I didn't grow up in Appalachia, but I grew adjacent to it in Middle Tennessee, okay? Mm-hmm. And the woods in general can be a very freaky place. Yes. There's a section of woods in which I grew up right across the road from that we call the Colons, and it is dangerous. And I have seen apparitions in those woods. I don't mess with the colons. It has claimed lives, and no one in their right mind does that. So there can be some validity, but a lot of these creators are simply going on and hopping on this hype train and trying to get clicks, and that is the entire purpose behind it. And it has exploded the entire ecosphere, and it's kind of given it entirely way too much gravitas for my own opinion. You know, yes, there are things that you in the South that you just do not do. I will be the first one to acknowledge that.
JJ, let me, and I apologize deeply for interrupting you. Let me press the rewind button because I missed something and I wanted to get it. You said you were speaking about being in the woods, but you said you named something.
You called it the colons.
The colons, yeah, that you don't mess with. What's?
Yeah, how do you spell that? How does that?
What do you mean by that?
It's just like a human colon.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's the nickname that this wood has gathered because it is pitted with holes all over the place.
Okay, yeah.
People have been walking down there. They have fallen into holes. They have broken their legs, twisted their ankles.
Is it an old Indian burial ground?
Yeah, well, around our property, there are so many Indian, Native American burial grounds that it's not even funny.
Okay.
So, yes, there are definitely those things. In fact, I will go so far as to say that I have likened where I grew up to be a patchwork quilt of nightmares.
Yeah.
Because
That's a good term.
Every single property has at least one ghost story associated with it. And they're not the tame stories of, Uncle Billy came back and said hi to me. However, I don't want to overinflate the importance of all this stuff. And Appalachia has been given this kind of mystical, it's the oldest mountain range in the world. And, and they just kind of harken back and they try to give entirely too much meaning to this stuff. And it is, as someone who's involved in the paranormal, it's annoying and it's cheap content. And that stuff just gets under my skin to no earthly degree.
Well, how many of these?
I remember one time Vic and I were talking, and let me take you on a little journey right quick. You guys know that there's times that I have to be an exorcist. And y'all remember the very first encounter that I said that I had in Belize, Central America. Well, let me take you back several years. I'll never forget, but Vic and I were talking about one time being children and just walking through the woods that kids today don't know anything about, and how we enjoyed it, and you could just hear everything. And that's the way I grew up. I mean, I really enjoyed as a kid, even my pre-teenager years, just walking throughout the woods and the creeks and just enjoying you could really get in touch with yourself. But I remember one day I was hunting, and I had my old fashioned 12 gauge pump, with my slugs and my buckshot, and I said, well, I'm going to go deeper than I've ever been before. And I went way back in the woods. And then all of a sudden I stumble across this old cemetery. I mean, so old there's no markers, just piles of rocks and stuff. And so I walk on past it, and then I find me a place, okay, I'm gonna sit right here for a while. Well, I'm sitting right there, and then all of a sudden these folks show up in their black gowns and this and that and the other. This was this was in the evening time, so it was getting close to dark. And I'm like, they don't look right to me. I mean, I was a kid, I didn't know what in the world was going on. I knew what was going on now, but yeah, I love the woods. But some things, as Charlie Daniels would say, of the legend of Willie Swamp, there's just some things you can't explain, And but yeah, the woods can be a creepy thing. But as far as the Appalachians are considered, there's only one thing that I know for certain about that, is that you don't walk into anybody's pot field.
Yeah, that's what you would say nowadays. It used to be you don't walk up on that still.
On the steel.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the Appalachians. All right. I grew up in a valley in Southwest Virginia in the mountains, in the Appalachian Mountains. I'm right on the edge of them. And I spent a lot of time in the mountains growing up, out in the woods, on lakes, and hunting, fishing. And I think there may be one time when I look back on it that I might have actually heard a Bigfoot. I heard some whoops when I was about 14 at 4 o'clock in the morning up in the woods and waiting for, we'd go in up on National Forest land, Jefferson National Forest. And, I heard some whoops after my dad and I had separated. He was on one side of the ridge, I was on the other. And he just told me it was a deer grunting, but I've been a lot of deer hunting since then, and deer don't grunt like that. So I've heard whoops recorded and stuff like that. I think that may have been what I actually heard. But aside from that, I've never run anything in the woods that was super unusual. I mean, when I was a kid, I've had times I was in the woods and maybe scared. But I don't think I've heard lots of stories. I've heard stories from family, but I don't think it's any different than woods anywhere else. I don't think there's anything special about the Appalachians over forest in Georgia or Alabama or anywhere else.
I do.
Why do you think it's different?
Appalachia. For me, Appalachia means eastern Kentucky, up in those hills. And it is a different part of the world.
One of the differences that makes one place different from another is not the people, but the land. Keep that in mind. And even in a biblical sense, land is a covenantal property, whether it be good or whether it be bad. You with me?
Yeah.
And so let's say that I grew up in this land as a God-fearing, trusting, law-abiding, old covenant person, like Noah, okay? Because Noah was saved, whatever. All right. So then you have the land of let's just say the Sumerians that worshiped foreign gods. So the land can be blessed or cursed. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take us back to the very beginning. Let's take us back to Genesis. When Cain killed Abel, did not God say that Abel's blood was crying out? You with me? So that came from the land. So, and see, that's that. Well, I think this is kind of an amazing subject tonight because we're in the season of Lent. In the season of Lent is when historically people would have their homes blessed again. We bless our homes because of things that were brought in unknowingly or done or whatever. And we need God's blessings upon our home once again. Same thing with the land. Well, we could look at the own state of our country right now. Our land was blessed at one time. Now, I'm not too sure it's not being cursed, but that's a whole nother story and another whole bone to pick. But it's land or that place can hold on to a blessings or a cursing. And David, you probably understand that quite well with your research.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah,
that's what we're talking about.
I think of that more in very specific small tracts of land than I do in entire regions.
Oh, it can be nations. Have you ever heard the saying of the Proverbs that it's the little foxes that spoil the vine.
Yes. No, I haven't. I haven't heard that.
Yeah, Proverbs speaks of the little foxes. It only takes a little bit to spoil the vine. In other words, it only takes a little bit to spoil the crop. If I have one rotten apple sitting on top of a basket of fully ripe, precious apples, right?
Right.
That spoilage from that rotten apple is going to decay. And what's going to happen? It's going to go onto the rest of them. What's the acids in that rotten apple going to do to the rest of the basket?
Yeah, I mean,
it's going to spoil those too.
You're correct. I mean, it'll do that. I guess when I think of the stuff we're talking about here, when you're talking about experiences in woods or forest or mountains.
Oh yeah,
I think of that if that's related to some sort of curse or some sort of activity that took place. I think of it in smaller tracks, right?
And you're correct. It's certainly stronger in that smaller area. Okay.
So Vic,
but the deal has been done. It may be concentrated in that one little area,
right?
But
it persists.
Exactly. That's exactly.
In that part of Appalachia, you've got the part I'm familiar with, which is Kentucky. You've got quite a few people who have done everything they can to not be part of the modern world. They don't want to be part of the modern world. If that means no electricity, no phones, whatever, they're fine with that. They don't want that. They consider much of what happens to you and I out here in civilization to be demonic, to be evil. And they're very, very, very suspicious of anybody coming in there. If they learn to trust you, which can happen over time, you never become part of them. You become a tolerated outsider. And have you ever seen the movie, well, I was going to say it, Pumpkinhead. Have you ever seen that movie?
Oh, yeah.
No, I still haven't seen it.
You haven't seen the movie Pumpkinhead?
Oh, man, you got to watch it. It's crazy, but you got to watch it. You got to watch it.
Yeah, but it's crazy. But that whole idea of, look, I've been wronged. I'm going to go find somebody to help me make it right.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I don't know if you have a weird thing you dig out of the ground and you rehydrate and you have like an instant monster. But that whole idea of blood vengeance, that is part of Appalachia.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of Appalachia. I personally have never had in all those woods. Look, I mean, there are times at night, if you're hiking out there, if you're hiking the Appalachian Trail, it's a good idea to stop at night. You don't try to hike with your flashlight because you're going to fall into some kind of, like JJ says, the colons. You're going to fall into a hole. You're going to fall down and hurt yourself. But there you can feel when things are different out there. What am I feeling? I don't know. I mean, at some point I got to talk about this. The only thing I've ever run into in the woods that was something I didn't really want to run into was not in the United States. It was in Australia. And I am rather proud of myself that it didn't stop me from going into the woods, period.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for Vic to tell this story.
I have been too.
Well,
Let's roll with it.
You realize I've waited 21 years to tell this story?
What did I tell you guys about becoming vulnerable? Let's do it, man.
That's right.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Okay, so
but you've had a couple run-throughs recently.
I've had a couple of run-throughs recently. I've had some run-throughs recently. So Father Mike knows the story. Dave knows the story. JJ, do you know the story?
Nope.
Okay. Hang on a second. I'll give you the exact date.
Hey, Vic.
Yeah.
Vic.
Yeah.
I want you to take your time and take a deep breath, okay?
Oh, I will. Okay. I don't want to do that. Let's see. Just got to give me 1 second. I'll give you the exact date because I can I can relate it to something. Okay. The events that I'm about to talk about happened, I believe. The earliest it could have happened was February 1st. The latest it could have happened was February 3rd, 2003. And the reason that I can tell you that that's when it happened was because when I got back to civilization and I went to look in the newspaper box, you know, where you can take your quarter or whatever and get yourself a newspaper, it was talking about the Columbia disaster. And I had been out in Nowheresville, and I didn't know it had happened. I had no idea that the Columbia had disintegrated upon coming back into the atmosphere, which made me sad and really made me wish that I had known what was going on. But I didn't have any way of communicating with the outside world. I was in Australia. I went there initially to do work. I went there to work for the Aboriginal Health Service. And we were doing simulation. We were doing, you say, why would you be simulating that? Well, because it's a huge country and people live in, especially many of the Aboriginals, at least back then, they lived in very remote places in the country. And it was a real problem for them to figure out, okay, how do I get materials? How do I get supplies? How do I get occasionally doctors? What do I do if I've only got 50 doctors on staff? How do I make that population of doctors available to 125,000 people out there? You know, how can I extend that with nurse practitioners or just nurses or train people there, you know, out there in the bush? What do I do? It was an interesting job. But you don't get to go to Australia very often. And so once my being in Australia was paid for, I kind of felt like, well, I guess I should take some time and be here for a little longer. I should, you know, go see the country, learn about things. Plus, I was really wanting to get out of the desert. The Australian desert is hot. I mean, it's hot.
Hence the term desert.
It is hot. I mean, there are days we'd be out by like the Olgas or Lougarou, and the wind would just be blowing at you. It was like an oven. You know, it really felt like somebody put a fan in the oven. It was blowing that hot air on you. It was just, there was just no escape from it. There were places that we went where you had to, the rule was, you can't even go here until you've had 2 liters of water to drink in front of us. You ever tried to drink 2 liters of warm water?
Wow.
Well, it doesn't make you think, oh boy, this is a lot of fun. Okay, so anyway.
I would be peeing every 5 minutes after that.
You'd be peeing. Well, you don't there because it's all, you're sweating it all out.
Yeah, you would think so, but you don't.
No. And I'm not going to go there. But first off, I was really happy to get out of the desert. So I fly down to Melbourne, and Australia is actually a really, really beautiful country to fly over. So I'm taking my time. I'm going to take some rabbit holes, as they say. Do you know they've got a really, really big rabbit problem in Australia? They really.
I am actually aware of that.
They really do.
And we're back.
Well, they brought rabbits in
David.
years and years and years ago, and they just got out of control. So
Really?
Oh, it's terrible.
They brought rabbits into Australia?
Yeah, there were no rabbits in Australia.
Oh,
Now there are now.
I wonder why.
Lots of them.
Lots of them.
I wonder why there was never any there.
Well, it was an island from the rest of the world, and rabbits just never got there. So they've built the rabbit-proof fences. There's a fence that goes from the southern coast of Australia all the way to the northern coast of Australia. And then there's one that goes all the way out to the west. It does not control the rabbits. It helps control the rabbits. But anyway, I get down to Melbourne and I decide, okay, I'm going to rent a vehicle that will let me go anywhere I want to go. And so I I rented a Mitsubishi Pajero, which is a big diesel-powered SUV. And four-wheel drive, very powerful thing. And I went everywhere. The goal at this time was to find a trailhead where I could park my SUV and I could get my supplies together. I had the ability to filter water. I had food, very simple food. Once you're out there doing that, the food doesn't matter. It's just a fuel source. Can I just get some calories to do what I need to do? So you don't really care about that. I find this particular place, and I've talked to the rangers in the area and said, look, how far back there can I hike? Can I hike 3 days in and then 3 days out? And as long as there's water, I'm happy. All across most of Australia, that was a year of tremendous drought. And they had, there were very few places you could go where there was water. This part of Australia, which was around what's called the Yarra Ranges and kind of south of the Blue Mountains, there was a lot more water there. Okay, so there was water that I could get. And you also see that if the drought gets too bad in Australia, you don't see any animals. They'll go back where it's cool and they'll hide and they'll try not to use any water. But down here you could see them. I could see echidnas. I could see lots and lots of wallabies. You'd occasionally see a dingo, that kind of thing. Okay, so the job is I'm going to hike back there, sleep in a hammock, get as far away from humanity as I can. I mean, to me, that's a good time. I know not everybody is going to think that's the best time. I didn't want to be around anyone. I didn't want to talk. Okay, well, what it turned into was, first off, a hike where I initially saw something that was not supposed to exist, but was not frightening. I came around a corner and this rocky, dusty, leaf-covered trail and found myself within 15, 20 feet of a four-legged creature with a huge head, short rear legs, long front legs, really, really long tail, and the most incredibly massive head you've ever seen. It looked like it could eat another one of itself. And it had stripes on it. And so what I saw, and I will attest to my dying day, was a thylacine, a Tasmanian tiger, Tasmanian wolf, whatever you want to call them. Things that are supposed to have been extinct now for, close to 100 years. I don't think they are extinct. I think there are small populations of them still out there. In fact, I know there's at least one small population of them out there. And so if there's one, there must be others. I think they're smart. I think they've figured out how to stay away from people. I think this one was probably really, really pissed off at itself that it didn't stay away from me. And it was pissed off at me for being there. Beautiful animal. The thing that I remember most about it was its eyes. It had these deep black eyes, and they kind of had gold flecks in them. And so it looked at me for a moment. I looked at it. I had all across Australia, I'll show you thousands of slides if you want to see them, a really good camera around my neck. A really good camera. It was a high-end Canon film camera. It had what at the time was the best Tamron super zoom. So 28 to 300, I think. And but it was rolled up. There's no way I could get it out in time. So I didn't get a picture of that thylacine, which would have made, my life a very different kind of life, I think.
Yeah. They're cool looking critters too.
They are cool looking critters. This was a very big one. This was bigger than the ones you can see in the Sydney Zoo, those old films. But if you're watching that thing, watch how it opens its mouth. Okay, I mean, it's just like a maw. It's like it could get its mouth around just about anything.
Is it in the feline, or what?
It's this thing. I believe it's more canid than anything.
Because the nose is longer than a typical feline, but the body looks like a cat almost.
Very, very lithe, powerful, strong body. But
hey, Vic.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry about the rabbit hole, but this whole story reminds me of a series that Josh and I used to watch. Did you ever watch the series Teen Wolf?
I watched the first movie.
Oh no! I'm not talking about the movie with Michael J. Fox. This is a whole different thing. But they have a whole season of where they're in like the desert realm.
Yeah.
And I always said there's a little hint of truth in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And this story is making my theory very much true. Anyway, I just had to throw that, but because they go into the desert and they come across all these creatures, especially the one that you're just talking about. Mm-hmm. And anyway, it just sparked something in me, and I just had to get it out.
Well,
I'm sorry.
There's nothing to be sorry about. Hey, look, if you're not comfortable with asides, you got to get off the rundown.
That's very true.
It ain't no place for you on the rundown. And I can't tell this story easily. This part is not so bad. Later on, it gets a little harder. But I kind of have to I find that I sort of have to walk through the whole thing from the beginning, because my brain doesn't really want to think about this. And I kind of have to trick it to get there. Does that make sense, as Father Birdsong says? I kind of have to...
Makes all sense in the world.
I kind of have to trick it to get there.
Yep.
Okay, so look, I learned at that moment, okay, I don't care what they say, they're going to call me an idiot, and they have 100 times. There are thylacine existing in Australia. And I think other people have seen them, and I think... But it kind of gets into the category of just a cryptid. Nobody really believes they're there. The sheep farmers wiped them out. Early 20th century. And then I started noticing that there were other animals. When this thing left, it was beautiful to watch. It just kind of looked at me. Oh, crap, a human. Turned to the side, jumped off into the bush, and you could hear it scuttling around back there, and you could hear others scuttling around back there. So there was noise back there. So this was a family unit of some kind. And I was happy to have seen it. That was it. So I just stopped right there in the trail and just thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. It's like, okay, don't want to let this out of your mind. And then, of course, people say, oh, all you just saw was a brindle dingo. No, I didn't see a brindle dingo. Brindle dingoes don't open their mouths this wide. Oh, you just saw a numbat. No, I didn't see a numbat. A numbat's the size of a house cat. This was the size of a Labrador retriever. It was a thylacine.
Which would be big for a dingo anyway, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be very big for a dingo.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I keep going. I had hiked in. I was on the second day in there, and so I was a good long way in, and I saw this thylacine, sometime around 2 p.m. or something like that. And I'm sort of thinking about the rest of my day. How far in here do I hike? When do I find a place to lay up, to set up my hammock? And that's how I was. That's how I was camping. It was with a, what's the name of that company? Anyway, whatever the most famous hammock company is, I had one of those hammocks.
It's a cool way to camp too.
It's especially
the ones they make now.
Oh, very cool way to camp. And really, I mean, we're talking a roll of cloth that's nothing. I mean, it's 2 pounds, maybe. And you're up off the ground. And being up off the ground in Australia is a very good thing.
There's things out there that'll kill you.
Well, they'll certainly bite you.
Yeah, and if you're that far out, kill you.
Right, if they're that far out, kill you. I did walk everywhere. I was out there with my snake gaiters, which are these big, thick plastic things you put over your legs. And at some point during that trip, I stepped on a brown snake.
That's the really bad one, right?
Whoa. Yes, it is. You really tripped over?
I stepped on a brown snake.
Do you know how blessed you are to be alive right now?
Well, I was blessed in a certain in two ways. I had my snake gaiters on.
Okay.
And two, I stepped on its head.
Okay.
Well, if you can step on it anywhere, that's a good spot.
That's okay. All right.
I stepped on it, and I didn't step on its head deliberately. I mean,
did the serpent bruise your heel?
I had on my that is the genesis. I had on my German handwag hiking boots.
Oh, I'm glad you did, because those are bad boys.
Yeah, they are.
Well, I mean, Handwag was the company that made most of the Nazi boots. And so, look, they make really good boots. And so I had their hiking boots. Okay. Continue to hike. Sometime around, it was evening. It was getting toward evening. And all of the sounds of the forest change. Everything changes. And the feeling changed. Okay, now, look, this is the story that if I tell people, I always think there's a 50% chance that they're going to consider me an idiot, a delusional guy, or they're just going to think, well, Victor's a pretty smart guy. He's just made up a good story.
Or they'll believe you.
Or they'll believe me. There are things that I started experiencing. First off, a feeling of incredible dread and fear and anxiety. Then a feeling of exceeding nausea, extreme nausea, like you're going to throw your toenails up kind of nausea. And then there was a smell, and it was unlike any other smell that I've ever smelled. Not the fact that it was just a horrible smell, but the fact that it wasn't like any other smell. If there's a dead dog in your yard, you will smell it all the way across your yard. But you'll smell it faintly, and as you get closer to it, the smell will get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. There's not a point where you come across that yard and the smell stops. And then you walk another few steps and it starts again. Smells don't do that. At least okay.
But this one did.
This one did. The smell was something. Look, I mean, you've heard the descriptions, and that's what it's a mixture of, wet dog and dead animal and feces and sewer gas and skunk. Skunk was a pretty powerful part of it. I mean, skunk is a thiol smell, and humans are really good at smelling thiols. So I'm aware that something isn't right, and I mean, the best I can tell you is the Dementor feeling of like all the happiness has gone out of the world. That was what I began to feel, and it could hit you, and then it could go away. It could hit you, and then it could go away. And so pretty soon I become aware that something is very wrong, and I'm, at least 15 hours away from the trailhead. So not a lot to do. Finally coming to a clearing. Across the clearing, about as big as a big living room, was a 9-foot tall humanoid thing. And the reason I say it's 9 feet tall was because even under this circumstance, I was analytical, and so I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's the angle of my head? 'Cause I'm thinking of a basketball goal. Okay, how high do I have to look to see that basketball goal? And it wasn't quite as tall as a basketball goal, but it was almost as tall as a basketball goal. Have you ever seen a Discovery Channel special about octopuses or octopi? And they'll show an octopus swimming along.
It's octopuses, but yes.
Yes, you will see an octopus swimming along, and you can see it just fine. And then it'll get up against a complex rock, and it's like it disappears. You know, the various chromatophores on its body change, and even the texture of its body changes.
Yep.
And it matches that rock. That's what this thing could do. That's exactly what this thing could do. It was like,
Hey, Vic,
yeah,
hold on 1 second.
yeah.
Vic, I just bless you with peace.
Oh, it's getting easier, but thank you.
Okay. I bless you with peace and grace.
It's getting easier. I mean, I'm
Okay.
pretty sure we don't have any of these guys in New York, or if we do, they're much smaller.
Okay.
But thank
Just
you.
want to make sure, son.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Okay, so I say see, but it's almost more like just be aware. It was like the piloerector muscles on this thing could control its hair, and it was hair, it wasn't fur, so exquisitely that it could kind of just, it was like a metamaterial. It could fade in and out of that background. And it was standing next to some trees. And I stop somewhere in here about this time. I let go of my bladder, and I came real close to letting go of everything. But I honestly really did not want to let go of everything. And there are two reasons. One, that's embarrassing. Second off, I didn't want to have to hike with a load in my pants.
Definitely not.
I'm just gonna
Talking about a crusty keister
I
cavity.
did not want to hike with a load in my pants. All right, so as this thing becomes aware that I can see it, it kind of seems to decide that it's better for me to see it better than I could see it originally. So it does its magic. It does whatever it is doing to change the angle of those hairs relative to the sunlight or relative to the trees, and it becomes more and more and more visible. And then and look, I got to tell you, I've sat here and I've thought, how much time was involved in this? How much time did this experience take once I ran into this thing? And I don't know. I don't know if it was 10 seconds or 10 minutes. I just know it was more than 10 seconds, but I don't know exactly how long it took. So, after a little bit, it had pretty much completely revealed itself. It was, first off, monstrous, huge, 3 meters, 9 feet tall, a little more than 9 feet tall. Muscular like you can't imagine. Hands that were beyond belief, like the hands of David on the Michelangelo statue.
Yeah, I was going to say, my hands aren't that big.
Yeah. Well, take a look at the Michelangelo statue, David, and those hands are monstrous. But he was such a wonderful artist that it doesn't look that way. Anyway, huge, huge, huge hands. Not a humanoid face. More of a snout kind of thing. And a lot of extra hair up here. Can't tell you what kind of ears it had. Can't tell you if it had ears at all. It wasn't like an American Patty that didn't have any neck. I mean, if you look at Patty, Patty looks like a monster wrestler or something. This thing looked more like a very, very powerful NBA athlete with a snout. and hands the size of David's. Okay, so I got to tell you, your brain shuts off. It's just, I don't know what that is. And the only question you have in your mind is it going to kill me?
It's a good question. It's a good question to be asking.
Is it going to kill me? And you have zero control. I mean, you talk about being in a situation where you just don't have any control of your life at all. That's it. You don't have any control. I mean, most people, I don't know. Did I handle it better than most people or worse than most people? I don't know. I made a mistake. There was the ego-driven part of me that said, well, I missed my camera last time. Maybe I should use my camera this time. And I kind of moved my hand toward the camera. And it made it very clear that wasn't a good idea. You know, kind of a... And there was nothing else. There were no huge roars or growls or anything like that. The eyes were intelligent. The eyes were decision-making eyes. Okay, if you look at I've also run into bears. Okay, bears don't have decision-making eyes. Bears have eyes of, oh, there's a thing that's not supposed to be here. I'm either going to run or he's going to run. There's really no other decisions. This thing had decision-making eyes. And it kind of seemed like at some point the decision was made that I'm not going to kill it. Because it could have killed me so fast that I couldn't have done a darn thing. And so I don't know if this is, I've never really thought about this. There was some kind of communication going on, definitely, because of this feeling of nausea and dread and that smell that just kept coming and going. But
the nausea and the dread could have been
very natural.
Well, it could have been sound, right? It could have been.
I've read about infrasound.
Yeah, and so that can certainly cause feelings like that if it's strong enough,
or even anxiety at that moment.
Yes. Well, so
but he felt that before, right? He felt that before that started.
The first thing I felt.
Okay.
That would seem like a defense mechanism.
Okay.
When I hear these people on 100 different podcasts and on TV talk about, I'm an expert in this and I know exactly what they're doing. Bullshit.
Yeah.
You sir, don't know dick. I'm sorry.
Hello.
But you do. you do not.
They obviously have not experienced it.
All I knew was that, all right, time to go.
Yeah.
And so of the whole time, the moment of the greatest fear was turning around to walk the other way. Because so this means I got to take my eyes off of you, and I got to turn around, and I got to start walking. And
well, I got to hand it to you, Vic, because I'm going to be very, very, very honest with you right now.
Yeah.
Not only would I have pissed myself,
you might have taken.
I would have defecated myself too.
Well, I was able to avoid
You're
that.
You're a better man than I am.
That was the only moment of, I don't know, redeeming moment I had. Look, I turn around and I start walking, and I sometimes life gets down to very, very simple decisions. And Father Birdsong, I'm not trying to make anything difficult on you, but I know that there were moments in time when you were going through your back pain where your world comes down to, can I take that next step?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Daily. Yeah.
Can I lift my foot to get over that threshold? Can I turn? Okay, that's all that matters in the entire world. You're not caring about tomorrow. All you're caring about is that next step.
Right now.
That next step. And that was my entire world.
Well, you just explained my whole world right now, because that's the way it is sometimes. But I can only imagine what it was for you at that time. Well, see, first and foremost, you experienced what people say, well, it might have been a big dingo. that's a whole nother story.
Oh, the thylacine was delightful. I was happy about that.
Yeah, of course. But then you went from that high to a great
Oh, yeah, I never thought about that
shit
either.
moment. You know, I mean, we've all experienced a oh shit moment. You know,
Yeah, I've had a few.
You experienced a major one, and you know this creature, you know, that's what we call in the States a Bigfoot.
And there they call it a Yowie.
But for people to say that they're experts in it, they have obviously never experienced it firsthand, because if they did, their stories would change and they would be a little bit more humble, as you are right now.
Oh,
and
I mean,
so
look.
every story that I've heard about people seeing Bigfoots,
Yeah.
there was no humbleness. So that makes me want to call BS on every story that I've heard.
Well,
I've heard some.
I've heard some.
I've heard some Bigfoot stories where it's not, you know.
well,
super
I've also
confident about
I've also
what
heard I got out my 12-gauge shotgun and blew his damn head off.
Yeah. Okay. Let me know how that works out for.
That's not going to work out for you. Look, I mean,
you know,
I am a believer in evolution. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
also
JJ's trying to say something.
Go ahead, JJ. Sorry.
So, would you say that this looked more like a Bigfoot, or was it more resembling like a Lougarou?
More like a Lougarou.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do
More
you
like
think it could have been SCP-1000?
Oh, certainly could have been. I don't know what SCP-1000 is, but
We have to talk about the SCP Foundation.
we got to talk about
because,
SCP.
Well, my limited research calls that the American equivalent of the Bigfoot, but like I said, very limited research.
Well, I mean, look, you do start thinking again after a period of time.
Yeah.
Okay, and the thinking. Look, I mean, a Lougarou is going to have a big ass snout. Okay,
Right.
This
Yeah.
did not have a big snout. It was a humanoid snout-like face with some hair on it, and a lot of hair up front. Okay, or up top. Ask me what color the skin was. No freaking idea. I don't know.
Of course you don't.
I don't know. I don't know what the color of the skin was. Was it? I'm thinking kind of grayish, brownish, something like that. I don't know what color the skin was. Anyway, walking along, and the thoughts in your mind are, I'd like to turn around and look and see if it's there. I want to turn around and look. I'm not going to turn around and look.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I am. No, I'm not. Yeah, I am. No, I'm
I'm not going to turn around and look. And I never did. I never did turn around to look. What I noticed was that after I had walked for about an hour, and the sounds of the forest started to come back, the feeling became less oppressive. The feeling was like the regular woods, and I walked as long as I could until I just was so tired that I couldn't even move. I didn't set up my hammock. I took off my underwear, and I did have some clean underwear in my pack. I was really happy about that. But I cleaned myself up the best I could. Okay. By the time we're coming back, I'm starting to run into the issue of water. You know, how much water is there? And I decided, look, I'm just not going to worry about it now. I'll get water as I find it as I go. So I got some sleep, or something close to sleep. And in that part of Australia, as soon as there's light, the kookaburras start to, just the tiniest bit of light coming up over the horizon, the kookaburras start to make noise. And they'll wake you up. you will wake up when the kookaburras start to make noise. And it's interesting, the kookaburras in the south have a different accent from the kookaburras in the north. And a different laugh.
Nice.
And so they wake me up. I get up, get dressed, and then just go as fast as I can go. Now, finally get back to the trailhead. Once again, it's late in the day. It's starting to get late in the day. And I have a new anxiety, which is kind of too much hair. That SCP-1000 has too much hair. Too much hair, and needs a neck. Anyway,
Needs a
neck. So anyway, I finally get back to the Mitsubishi, and I had two really big worries. I had a pocket in my backpack, which was a very nice backpack, where I kept my keys and my passport. Are my keys there? Is my passport there? And they both were. And that was a very, very big relief.
Were you not allowed to carry a weapon out in the outback?
You can't carry a weapon anywhere in Australia.
Really?
Yeah, private ownership of guns has been just about eliminated.
Well, you certainly can't now. I don't know what back then it was could have.
You maybe could have, but as a non-Australian, I doubt it.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Look, Father Birdsong, unless it was a Barrett 50 and and you had some previous warning, a weapon wasn't going to do you any good.
Okay.
Nothing but piss it off. Well,
Yeah, a weapon.
Yeah,
well, Barrett 50 would probably take care of, but it wasn't going to do any good. So then life becomes more of, okay, what do I do now? Now, that part of Australia has all kinds of little villages, and they're like little English villages because a lot of the people are there from England. And so there'll be a place where you can get, scones and fish and chips. And so I drive into one of these little villages, the first one I can find, and try to find a place to sleep. Everything was booked up. And this one lady finally gave me a room and a bed and breakfast. He said, I'm going to have to charge you a lot. I don't care.
Yeah, at this point,
I don't care.
take all I've got.
Yeah.
Give me a room.
Got me a room and stood in the shower for 2 hours. Just
I don't blame you.
2 hours. Just let that water flow over me. Think, try to calm down. Finally get some sleep. Next morning, starving. Was crazy, crazy hungry. Got a big British breakfast, with beans and tomatoes and ham and eggs, and I even ate the eggs. I didn't even like eggs. But I ate them anyway. And then I go to talk to the police, and I was figuring, all right, I'm going to tell them what I saw, and they were not at all happy that I was there. They didn't want to hear my story. They were insulting. Stupid American, you're here to make trouble. When is your flight out? When are you supposed to go back to Sydney? So why don't you speed that up and go back to Sydney right now? They were just really, really nasty about it. Really nasty about it. So I realized that was kind of a no-win situation. Thought, okay, I'm going to drive out and see if I can find a ranger and tell the ranger. Go kind of in the same area. I wasn't going hiking anymore, at least not that day. I did find a ranger. I said to him, hey, listen, I got a story I'd like to... yeah, I know who you are. So apparently, they'd been in touch with the police, and they were, yep, know who you are, don't care about your story, think you need to go back to Sydney.
Well, that's because the police, as soon as you walked out, went, damn it, George is showing himself again.
Yep.
I wish these tourists would stop hiking that trail.
Stop hiking that trail.
Vic,
right,
you should write a semi-serious / comical book about this experience and call it Avalon's experience in Australia.
Oh man, you got to find me. You got to find me the humor.
Well,
I guess there is humor. Look, squishing along in wet underwear.
Yeah, that's the part I'm talking about.
Yeah, squishing along in wet underwear, and then thinking,
don't make it all gloom and doom, but talk about the squishy underwear and the sweating and the.
Then the question is, the big question to me is, what was this thing? Well, it was a Yowie.
I'm not so sure about that.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I don't know what it was.
And here's why I say.
What do you think it was, David?
Well, so let's go back to the description that JJ was. So a loup-garou is like the French.
I just say that
for
because of
a werewolf, right?
I say that because of the snout.
So you're saying it had a snout like a dog?
More like Teen Wolf.
Okay. Small.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not like
a chihuahua.
not like a gorilla like or
more like a
extended gorilla snout. You're talking literally more like a canine type thing. Well, and
Not
when you
like a
say
dachshund,
teen
but
wolf,
like
not
a
as
pit
long
bull.
as a dog's,
Yeah,
but with
yeah.
that kind of shape or features.
right with that
to
kind of
it.
shape, but not that
Like
long.
like a pit bull.
Right. It did, but it definitely had a snout. I mean, its face was not the nose was not like a man's. It was more like a dog.
So I'm out at this Yowie Hunters Australian website. And looking at witness sketches.
Do they have one?
And they got bunches. Hang on, and I'll send
Really?
the link up there.
I
But
didn't
it
see
is
it when I
not.
tried to look it up.
It is not like that.
Okay.
It is very much like a Bigfoot with more hair.
Oh,
That's
okay.
why I was saying it's American's version of Bigfoot. Yeah, that's why
But-
I brought that up.
What you're describing sounds almost like a Dogman type of.
Yeah, except I've never heard of
thing.
I've never heard of a 9-foot-tall dog man.
Yeah, but maybe they
But
grow
hey, they
bigger
grow
in
big.
Australia.
They're growing big out there in Australia. There is a. Well, I'm going to finish the story. I mean,
Yeah. Yep.
the ranger didn't want to hear what I had to say. I had another 10 days in Australia or so, but I wasn't going to go live out in the woods anymore.
No.
So I spent the rest of the time just driving around looking for beautiful things. And there are a lot of beautiful things in Australia. Either sleeping in hotels or just, public campgrounds. But that's my story of the thing that I saw that I don't understand and that didn't kill me. Why didn't it kill me? That's what I think the decision-making part of the eye was about. Was, okay, if I kill it, they're going to be more like it coming out here.
True.
And
True.
that was just kind of my thought, that if I kill it, they're going to be more like it coming out here. And I do think, okay, look, you can look in the face of your dog, and looking into a face of a smart dog, I mean, there's a personality back behind those eyes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's much more personality in this. Very close to being very, very close to human. Very, very close to human.
In all of the, and you've done more Bigfoot research than I have, Vic.
Mm-hmm.
But I've not heard of one camouflaging like that.
That's
That kind of controlled camouflage.
That's closer, Josh. Yeah,
the lichen.
except I don't remember seeing the ears. And I don't have any idea what the feet look like. Since
So you might have saw a werewolf then. Yeah.
I don't know. There's a picture that I have found years later. Please understand this. I found this picture years later. And let me see if I can find that real fast. You guys talk while I look for this picture, if you don't mind.
Vic, can you draw? Are you an artist?
I can draw.
Why don't you draw the best picture of what you saw and then show it?
Well, I can, but I want to show you.
I doubt very seriously that you'll find anything online. I always like real life, personal pictures instead of.
I'm looking for. Let's see. I'm back to Bert.
Yeah, Father Mike, if you look at that link that I sent, which is yowiehunters.com.au/witness-sketches. I put it over in the Discord.
I'll look at it in a few moments.
You're gonna see what you're looking for, which is all mostly hand sketched stuff.
Okay.
And
I'll have to get there.
And they're all, like I say, they're very Bigfoot, except for one of them. About, I don't know, a third of the way down, there's one that actually looks like what Vic is talking about. It's got a lot less hair. It's got an extended snout. It's got ears like the lichen that Josh posted, but they're lower on the head. And but the rest of them are all very Bigfoot-ish.
They're all patty-ish. You know what I mean by patty, right?
No.
You guys don't know what I mean by patty? The Patterson-Gimlin film.
Oh, gotcha. Right.
Yeah, the Patterson-Gimlin film. And that is the world's. That's what people believe a Bigfoot is in the United States. And that probably is what a Bigfoot is. There's a picture that I am not able to find right this second, and boy, that ticks me off.
That's all right. I'm sure it'll come up again.
Okay, but what it is, it's a picture that was taken in 1934, I believe, of it was taken by a worker in the Australian equivalent of the WPA. Okay, when the United States goes into depression, the rest of the world goes into depression.
Right.
And Australia was in a really bad depression at the time. So they had young men up in the Blue Mountains, cutting down trees and building cabins and cutting trails and, watershed work and that sort of thing. Well, these guys, this one guy had a day off and he's out there with his buddies. And he's sitting on a log, and he had given his camera to somebody else, just like a brownie camera, and they had taken his picture with it. And over on the left is what I saw, cloaked or camouflaged, and you have to look to see it. You have to look to see it, but I guarantee you that's what I saw. I mean, I can. That's the closest image I've seen to it. And I gotta find that darn thing.
Well, Vic, let me ask you a couple of questions.
Ask whatever questions you wish. I'm going to keep looking.
That's fine. So, what do you remember about the eyes of it? Or do you remember anything about the eyes?
Oh, I do.
Color, shape?
Large. Much larger than humans. Well, I mean, the whole thing was much larger than a human. Far apart. Brown, I think. Very intelligent. And standard almond-shaped eyes, I'm thinking.
So you could see, like, sclera, and so you had white.
No sclera.
No sclera.
No
Okay.
sclera.
When you... Before, or let's go with after. After your experience, anything odd happen in your life that you maybe didn't think about at the time?
Good question.
That's a good question. Give me an example.
Well,
I think
odd feelings, odd experiences.
Oh, well, I didn't. I mean, I was going to say this is normal
dreams,
recovery stuff, but for the next 2 weeks, I had nightmares. The next 2 weeks, I had this overall constant feeling of dis-ease.
Okay, so just normal anxiety type.
Yeah, it was like anxiety stuff. I didn't want to go out in the woods.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people that will have a Bigfoot experience after the sighting, next thing you know, they're seeing UFOs,
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen UFOs.
right? You have, but now that was
But you've seen it before
was there
this.
any relationship to the time when you saw those to this event?
I can't create in my mind any relationship between seeing this thing and any kind of paranormal or supernatural event in my life.
Okay. Had you seen UFOs before this event?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Remember, this is all a while back. I'm kind of having to.
Oh no, I know. Well, I'm with you. Like I look back at my experiences, which are more recent.
Over
and it's
20 years ago. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. of
Well,
course.
what did you have for breakfast that day, Vic? Come on.
Yeah.
I can tell you exactly. Believe it or not, I can tell you exactly what I had for breakfast that day.
Your
Yeah,
memory's
yeah.
just fine.
You know, guys, do y'all mind if I take this on
On a spiritual
a
direction.
whiter
yes.
shade of pale, as Procol Hair would say? I want to get back to I want to hit rewind and go back to the desert.
Okay.
And
Oh wait. Wait a minute. I got a question.
Okay.
JJ, do you put me in the crazy category?
No, absolutely not.
well,
Just because you saw something that you cannot explain, that falls so far out of the realm of what we would call normal, does not mean that you are abnormal by any stretch of the imagination.
agreed.
In fact, that's something in which we, in our line of work or occupation or whatever you want to call this, deal with on a daily basis. People that are discriminated against because no one will step out of their bubble of normalcy and
Yeah.
admit that there could be something outside of that realm of experiences that only they have had.
Father Birdsong,
Absolutely.
Can I delay?
Very
it?
well said, JJ. But Vic, I
Very
still
well.
think you may be a little crazy. But it
I-
has nothing to do with this event.
It's nothing to do with this event. Yeah.
I do
Go
think
ahead, Vic.
that you could capitalize upon this though and take take advantage of the wave of creature erotica that has been coming out.
Oh my God! You're talking about. Look, you go to. Have you know? All right, I can.
Seriously,
I put a
we're
bad.
not back to the rabbits,
I
right?
put a bad version of this photo on Discord. It's a bad version, but take a look at it. It's right beneath Josh's last whatever that thing is photo. And you really need a bigger version of it.
Oh wow.
All right, look on the left.
Yep.
You see, it's a thing that's sitting with its head down.
Yep.
Like, if I look at the ground, maybe they won't notice me. You see how there's all that fur and
yeah.
hair around the shoulders and on top of the head,
Well, it's
Yeah.
like it's sitting down with its arms crossed
with
on
its arms
legs.
crossed over
In
its
his lap. Yeah.
over its lap, over its
Yeah.
genitalia,
Yeah.
and it's like the left leg is more visible than the right leg.
Yep.
That's what I saw.
That's like a
And this picture was taken within 50 miles of where I was.
wow.
And I didn't find this picture until years after getting back from Australia.
That's pretty awesome.
So what's weird? So I saved it and I expanded it.
Oh, there are better versions of it out there.
What I can't see very well, is the head.
It's what you can see is the top of the head with like a mohawk thing going on, and he's looking down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but you can't see much of the
You can't see much of the
face.
eyes, the face.
and honestly, if it's the same thing you're talking about, it looks relatively small for the body.
The head?
Yeah.
Oh, the head does look very small for the body. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it's hard to tell with sort of the.
Well, it's
shading of
it's
the-
back farther away from the camera than the two fine specimens of manhood on the right. And those guys don't look like they've been chopping wood for a long time, but I mean, they're small guys. But it's farther away and it's much, much bigger. So I don't know. I'll find at some point the better image I have.
This picture, this photo, Vic, is interesting.
Uh-huh.
If you save it local and scroll in on it,
Yeah.
zoom in on it,
Uh-huh.
there is something going on with this photo. I can see about 5 different faces in this around the body. It's like there's photos. I mean,
On top of one another.
yeah, pareidolia is horrible, but I think it's more than that. I think there's actually faces in this image that have been overlaid with it.
Well, Vic, what I would like for
But-
you to do is you guys got to understand that Josh and Jessica are willing to help us in any way possible. And what I would like Vic to do is email Jessica. And she would, if Vic could get her started on a description, Jessica is a prolific. I mean, she is a wonderful
She's
artist.
she's a serious artist.
Serious, and she could get her to draw it for you and send it to you and say, well, this and this, and then she can, make adjustments and then so on and so forth.
I can do that.
She would be more than welcome to help you in getting this going. And
I don't remember the Mohawk stuff going on.
yeah, but if you give her a starting point, she could help you tremendously. And by the way, just as a free jab for her, if you guys got any pictures that you want hand drawn,
Okay.
she can do that for you too. But can I take this to a more upbeat fashion?
You bet. I wasn't trying to be real downbeat. Look,
No. No, Vic, none whatsoever, because I really thoroughly enjoy this story. But knowing you guys know my mind sometimes too, that it doesn't work quite right.
Well,
But
I'm going to delay you for 40 seconds, or maybe
Okay.
maybe 90.
go for it. No, go for it. Go for it.
But the word monster does not really come in my mind when I think about this thing.
No,
What comes in my mind is exquisitely evolved something.
I totally agree with that.
What does it take to evolve the ability to hide yourself by changing the angles of the hair on your body and do a really, really good job of it? Look, you could easily walk past this thing if it wasn't wanting you to know it was there. And that was
It had to have wanted you to know.
and here's the reason I think it wanted me to know I was there, was the clearing, then the trail continued kind of off to the left, back behind this thing. And I think that's where the family was.
Well, I believe this. I believe that. I mean, if we look in the days of the dinosaurs, if you will, you with me?
Mm-hmm.
There, and you think of the old stories of cavemen, right?
Yeah.
There had to be a way of humanoids to hide themselves or camouflage themselves from predators. Now, I know I just blew up.
That certainly increased your survival possibilities, yeah.
Exactly. And I'm sure that I just blew up everybody's theology and everybody says, "Oh, you're a priest," and you just shut up. You know,
Well, I mean,
you know, God's going to create what He wants to create.
exactly.
Whether we were or whether we were not, I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. That's not important. But what is important is at that time, whatever state we were in, we had to be in the position to protect ourselves. Does those creatures extend until today? I don't know. To me, it really doesn't matter. But if we see it, we do not need to discount it. Does that make
True.
Now, as Vic says, does that make sense to you? You know,
it does. But I'll say this and I am not an evolutionary biologist.
I am not either.
But I play one on TV.
There you go.
If you take something like that as a tactic, you're spending a lot of your energy to be able to do that. It'd be interesting to see when you take a chameleon or the octopus, what are they paying? What is the trade-off that they're giving? What are they giving up in order to have that capability?
They're probably giving up a lot of themselves.
Right. And so, it's hard to say if that's how, cavemen or older, it seems like if it was older humans or, Homo whatever version, that they had some sort of camouflaging. It seems like that's something that you wouldn't give up once you had it.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean.
Well, I mean, David, just like you and I've been talking about flounder a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even flounder, if they're on the right side on the bottom of the sand of the ocean, you can barely see them.
Well, and they only lay on the right side.
Well, okay,
but I'll say this.
I did not know that, but
it's because their eyes are on the the side.
Their eyes have kind of migrated around, right?
So so the underside is white as a ghost.
Okay,
but if they were to lay that way side up, they would be eyes in the sand.
Yeah,
but I have noticed that it does seem like, depending upon what they are laying on, if they're laying on coquina, their camouflage comes out more. If they are laying on just straight flat sand, you don't see it as much. And I don't know if that's a trick of the light or if that's something that's actually happening with their camouflage there based on what they're laying on. But it just seems like we are relatively the area of time that we are in where you don't need camouflage to protect yourself is relatively short compared to when it would be. So I don't think that's something we would have given up, which means to me this would be probably some other completely evolved creature or, something from somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, that's just like here in the Southeast, in the times that the copperheads are at their most active, it's going to take a lot for you to find one at times.
Oh yeah,
because they get into the leaves and they are so camouflaged that before you know it, you may step on one and you may get bit, you may not, but there's no telling how many we have passed by walking through the woods, and with evolution, or however you want to look at it, I don't discount that there's things out there that camouflage themselves at times.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I mean, we certainly have examples of it. There's no reason it couldn't be something that evolved that way, or was created that way.
I agree. But I want to go back to the desert. Is that okay?
Yep, I'm happy to go to something else. I mean, I'm not trembling like I was last time, but man, am I ever tired.
I want to take this to a more humorous point of view because
please,
my mind went with Alice for a little while. You were talking about the desert. JJ, you with us? JJ's muted. Okay. At any rate,
no, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay. All right. But Vic was talking about the desert and how he had to drink, what was it, 2 liters of water in front of him?
2 liters of warm water.
2 liters of warm. Oh God, that's nasty. But
well, it's better than 2 liters of cold water. That would
I could
drop your core temperature pretty quick.
I'd be happy to do that. I'd be much happier doing the 2 liters of cold water.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, guys, but I got to bring this up.
Please
and
do.
I don't mean to go down this road because I know where it's going to take us probably. But I was watching the episode of, what's the name of that show? Some kind of survivor show. It had the nature guy and the Army Ranger guy or something like that.
Well, there's the Bear Grylls show.
Yeah, Man vs. Wild, and then there was Survivor Man.
Survivor Man, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But these 2 guys, they were out in the desert and they needed water.
Uh-huh.
And so the Army Ranger guy, he really pissed off the nature guy, but he drank his own pee to stay hydrated.
Isn't going to work.
Now, that's my question. Could you drink your own pee to fool yourself and to think that you're not thirsty?
I don't think so. I think.
I'm sorry.
No. It's completely fair.
Had to bring that up.
It's a completely fair question. But urine is so full of particulate matter. It's so full of things.
That's what the nature guy was talking about.
Your body wants to get rid of the stuff that's in your urine.
Yeah.
Now, if you could figure out some way to distill your urine or to get a lot of that stuff out of there, that'd be fine. You could. And
that's now we're back to Dune.
Yeah,
there
the still suits. Yeah,
the still suit. Right?
The still suit.
There you go.
You could set up a drip distiller. Where you put the pee in a cup down at the bottom or something, and plastic on top. It evaporates, and the water evaporates and drips down into the middle. You don't get very much that. It takes forever to get any water doing that, but you could. You're giving me
there's no way possible that you could drink your own.
You would die if all you drank was your own urine.
Yeah.
Now,
okay.
He might be saying, look, I'm just doing it for a day.
Yeah. His idea was, I'm so thirsty, I just want something to wet my lips.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy was, you don't want to do that. You don't, but he did it anyway. He just basically just wet his lips and fooled himself into thinking, okay, now I'm fine. But I don't know. I could not bring myself. I don't know about it. See, that's what I was thinking. I don't know if I could bring myself to the point.
Well, the other thing is by the time you're that thirsty in the desert, this is not a very paranormal topic, but by the time you're that thirsty in the desert, you're fairly dehydrated and your pee is going to be extremely concentrated as well. So it's not even like normal, little bit yellowish pee. It's going to be really
extremely
strong.
Poisonous. Yeah, extremely poisonous. But back to the paranormal. Can I tell you guys about a dream I had recently?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
But you can tell us about one you had a long time ago.
Yeah,
okay.
Yes. I'm sorry. I just say that just because it's like it's a
crazy and I hope JJ's paying attention too.
I'm not.
I
You get grief on all sides.
I know, right? I believe I believe I had a glimpse. Well, I hate to say it because I don't want to sound. I believe I had a glimpse into hell.
What did you see?
I had a dream of this vast landscape. Now, you just got to picture it in your mind. And it was a mountainous region. It reminded me a lot when I woke up. It reminded me a lot of Lord of the Rings. What was it called, Josh? The
Mordor.
Mordor. Yeah, Mordor. Yeah, Mordor. It reminded me a lot of that, but it was real. It was real. The only color that I could pick up was real grayish looking.
Okay.
I mean, like a dark gray, smoggy. Like it wasn't just fog, but smoke. It was like smog filled area. If you can picture that in your mind.
Yeah.
And in the canyons of it, like we would see the, well, let's take the Grand Canyon in for instance. Instead of the river, it was a river of molten lava.
Okay.
But then on the side of it, and this is kind of only the scriptural text that I could take from it. It was quite funny after I woke up, but it was serious and funny, if that makes sense to you. It was like I saw Lucifer on this big, kind of like these carnival wheel things that you spin.
Yeah.
Whatever you land on, that's the prize that you get.
Like right there.
Yeah. Or either the lady on the spin thingy and the guy's shooting darts at her or something like that.
Knives.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Picture that in your mind. All right. So that's what I saw. And Lucifer was shooting arrows at the person on the wheel. And every arrow was like the deadly sins. Was it lust? Was it greed? Was it shedding innocent blood? Was it whatever?
Mm-hmm.
And then I woke up. And I'm like, what in the world did I just see? Did I just see the temptations of Lucifer in hell?
I don't know.
For us, but to me, it was very astounding because it showed me how vulnerable we are in our state and how Lucifer could put us on this carnival wheel. You with me?
Sure. Yeah.
And spin us and shoot whatever arrows he wants to shoot at us. And whatever hits us, he gains a prize. What's your thoughts on that?
Did you have ice cream before bed?
No, sir, I actually did. I wish I would have.
Was it a spot of mustard?
There you go.
Bit of underdone potato.
I mean, but that just kind of intrigued me.
It sounds like well, there are two parts of the dream.
Why am I dreaming this?
There are two aspects of the dream that are interesting to me. First off, the dark, foreboding, gray,
it was
lifeless,
very, very grayish.
Yeah,
very
gray,
grayish.
Lifeless landscape, and I'm thinking very few things are growing. If anything's growing, it's old and scraggly, and I can just smell that kind of flinty smell that
the land or the landscape looked like
a desert.
Well, no, it was kind of like what you would think of like a volcanic area.
Okay.
It was like just volcanic rock,
Pompeii.
kind of like Pompeii. Oh, I tell you what. Do y'all remember Star Wars Episode 3?
Yeah. The end.
Unfortunately.
Yes, I'm with JJ.
yeah.
Sadly, but
Wait,
yes.
wait. We're talking the one with I don't know.
Anakin and Ben Kenobi.
Oh, golly, yes.
Where they fight, you know.
Right. I have the high ground, Anakin. You can't win.
That's it. Well, that land, Mustafar, that's it. The land, it looked like the land of Mustafar, where the ground was nothing more than volcanic rock.
Okay,
Or kind of
gotcha.
like Hawaii in the mountain regions.
And you didn't have Jedi skills as far as lava surfing.
No, I wish. Yeah.
So
JJ, don't hate on Star Wars, man. Come on, man. Come on.
no. 4 through 6 were perfectly fine.
Absolutely. Yes, they were.
Well, I'm a heretic here. I don't think any of the Star Wars movies are great.
Come on.
But as long as they have all that good Star Wars stuff, you know, like big space explosions and big monsters living down in the pit, and
Listen to the books, man.
I'm happy.
If you will listen to the books like I do, you'll become a.
Well, I will say it's nothing compared to Star Trek, but
Oh, I agree. I agree. I agree.
but we don't have to go there. Anyway,
I mean,
what
go ahead. I'm sorry, JJ. Please.
what I was going to say is a few.
I got my lightsaber.
I'll trump your lightsaber with science. No, I'm
There you
joking.
go. There you go.
No. Well, made up science. Anyway, first, Psalm 91, the arrow that flieth by day.
There you go.
That's
There you
the
go.
first thing that popped. Well, that would the second
That's
thing
what
that
came
popped
into my mind
head.
too. Yeah.
The first thing that popped into my mind is, well, first, what you're describing with the smog sounds a great deal like the classical depiction of Sheol.
Sheol. That's what I was thinking, JJ.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Yeah, very much.
But with the volcanic aspect thrown in, you pretty much described the background scene of my first dream.
Okay.
Let's
go for it.
The the mountain of dead bodies in which sat a seductress.
Well, tell us about it.
Please.
That's actually going to be all of the first episode of season 5.
Oh,
Okay.
Which I'm currently
deal.
Tune in,
working
ladies
on.
and
Good deal.
Tune in to
Southern Demonology.
Southern Demonology, episode
Absolutely.
1, season 5.
But yeah,
Father Mike confirms JJ.
But that is interesting that there's a similarity there.
Yeah.
because in mine the background, it was all mountainous except
Yeah.
for a flat plain, and on this plain was a giant mound of flayed and decomposed bodies.
Was there
Okay,
any
yep.
lava in yours, JJ?
No, but the background was all in shades of red and brown everywhere. Everything
Yeah.
was red, black,
Yeah.
and brown.
You guys have different dreams from my dreams.
That would probably be a very good thing
That's
for
a
you.
very I was about to say that's probably
Same
a good
here.
thing, Vic. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you. Look, I've talked way too much this episode, but
No.
the dream I had last night, I've thought about all day. It was so strange because so in the dream, I woke up and decided that I needed to go become a motorcycle thief.
Okay.
And so I was looking for a gang of motorcycle thieves to join.
Hell Angels.
And no, we were going out stealing motorcycles, and I didn't want Harleys. I wanted those fancy, quiet, smooth Japanese motorcycles.
The good ones.
the good ones, right? I wanted those. And so, you know, dreams don't really follow reality. So I'd go out and I'd find a motorcycle, and then I would. My hideout was the top floor of a hotel, but I couldn't take the motorcycles up in the elevator because then everybody would see me. So I had to push them up the stairs to hide them in in the top floor of this hotel, and and then the police are coming to get me, and the gang is all scared and said, all right, let's go down to that end. We'll take the fire stairs down. The police aren't going to find us there. Get down there. There's the police. I'm able to overpower the policeman and grab his gun. And in my dream, I'm thinking, should I shoot this policeman? And in my dream, I say, no, that's not a good idea. That's a whole
Victor Manson as Jason Statham.
There you go.
That's a whole different thing from stealing a motorcycle. No. In fact, I'm gonna drop the gun. I'm gonna give myself up, and then that's the dream. So I was the bad guy in this dream.
That's funny. but yeah, I mean, it was just so.
Well, did these arrows hit you?
No. I mean, what I was seeing was someone else on it.
Were they being hit by those arrows?
Yes, different ones, depending on who they were, and I mean, they were different people on the wheel being spinned, and whatever hit them was what they had to deal with at that time.
All right, let me pose you a question, Father Mike.
Yes, sir.
Would that dream give credence to the evangelical idea that every sin is a demon?
No.
Ooh, interesting
No.
question.
I will say no, because
They all have one root.
exactly. And that's what I'm saying. They all have one root, but the idea of every arrow or every sin has a different demon. And this is my opinion of scripture and early church fathers in history. As you guys know, I've said that we in the, let me use a new term on you guys, the charismaniac world.
I like the term.
Interesting.
Is that like the Animaniacs? But
Hello. We have created a demon for every damn thing. Okay? And you know, sometimes I believe that we give the enemy too much glory and we give demons too much glory. So, you know, that to me, that dog won't hunt. To me, it is one root problem. And that's, we are all fallen people from the garden.
Yes.
So there's nothing new under the sun. There's no new demons. There, I mean, it all, everything that we focus from comes from one of two places. It's either of our own selves or from sin. And
Okay, but I'm gonna
hold on. So to say that everything that we see that is negative is some kind of demonic experience, I would call it false.
now, I would agree with you on that one. I was just
some of it could be a sin fault. Okay. Some of it could be very well a demonic fault. Some of it could be a, I don't know what fault, but to label some of the things that we go through these days, that everything bad that we go through is of the enemy, like what we like to do, sometimes some of it's our own problem.
Right, and that's probably the biggest danger of that is absolving personal responsibility, and that's my biggest problem.
That's the point. Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave.
I agree. I agree that there is issues that we have to deal with on our own.
Yes, sir.
But what you described was Satan choosing
True.
specific sins
True.
for someone to have to deal with. Now, what is the
That's his
mechanism
job. That's his
that
job.
he is going to use to cause that sin?
Okay, I will be glad to explain that. If you will go ahead and Google Romans chapter 8. If you look at Romans chapter 8, it begins, if I'm not mistaken, to where the Holy Spirit is ever making intercession for us with moanings and groanings which cannot be uttered. Then it goes on to say later, also in the book of Romans chapter 8, that Christ is at the right hand of the Father, ever making intercession for us. So those two things are very important to remember. And then St. Paul goes into a series of questions about who is he who condemns. Now, that is very important. Go ahead.
I get the condemning, but the condemning implies that he is observing sin and saying, see, he's bad because of this, giving in to this temptation. It does not imply that he is the one tempting of that sin. So if Satan or Lucifer, whomever, is going to tempt of a specific sin, what is the mechanism that he would use in order to do that? And would that not be demonic using for temptation?
Yes. And the reason why of that is because of our own sin. Our own sin gives way to Lucifer or the enemy to condemn us. And so that's why St. Paul, he asked the question, who is he who condemns? Have you got to that part yet? It's in the latter part of the chapter. He says, who is he who condemns? And then it goes through all of St. Paul's trials and tribulations. And then it goes on into the fact that I am convinced that nothing, so on and so forth, shall separate us from the love of God. That's all an encouraging part. But it is our sin that enables the enemy to condemn us. You with me? So
I get that.
At the very root of this whole problem is that we condemn most of the condemnation that we feel, most of the condemnation that we are affected by comes from me and you.
Yeah, I get
which gives power, to the enemy to take it even further. Does that make sense to you?
It does. And maybe we have a long conversation on that, on ending the curse. Okay. My point was just that you had Lucifer choosing the sin by firing the arrow.
No. He wasn't choosing. He was shooting different ones.
Right. Choosing. You're going to deal with lust. You're going to deal with greed. Whatever
hit, that's what he was going to affect you with. And if we're honest, if we're really honest, it doesn't take a whole lot for the enemy to figure out what the heck we're going through. You know what I'm saying? So, but it was just fascinating to me that I saw this grayish, I can't even put it into words to describe it. I really can't. JJ, does that make sense to you?
Yes.
I cannot all I can say is it was dark gray. It was a
Charcoal.
yeah, and you know, like the charcoal right before you get ready to cook on it, that turns gray, but it's at its hottest, and that's a place that I don't want. I don't ever want to see that again. To be honest with you.
Have y'all seen the TV, or the HBO TV series 30 Coins by any chance?
No.
Not yet.
You've mentioned it before,
mentioned
and
it,
you
yeah.
seem to be impressed with it.
You were halfway through the first episode when we talked about it last.
Yeah, so I'm...
Put that on the Discord where I can see it and look it up.
Okay, I'm finished episode 3 at this point, and it has some, not to spoil anything, but it has some very unique visions of hell, and it's extremely labyrinthine, and I have to admit that the vast majority of my dreams take place in labyrinthine structures.
That's not surprising to me.
So, but anyway, can we bring
You have a
things
labyrinthine
back?
mind.
Well, I don't know about that now, but can we go back to the, kind of back to the beginning just a little bit here?
Yeah.
Because I've only got like 10 minutes before I got to go. So I've still got work I have to wrap up before I crawl into bed. The idea that Father Mike brought up that a land can be cursed. I heartily agree with that. And that's primarily because of my, not only for certain regions where I grew up that are much more smaller in effect, much smaller areas of land that you definitely don't want to be on, but for the entire Juken of Japan, the suicide forest that's at the base of Mount Fuji. Oh my God. So I had been dying to go to this place ever since I had heard about it. And, 5-6 years later, I finally get to go. I convinced my coworkers to go on a long ass road trip to get out there. We get there. I'm in that forest 15 minutes, and I am telling, not begging, not asking, telling everyone to get their ass in gear and get out. And I will never step foot in that forest again. That place is evil.
Now, Vic, you've been there,
No, I have not.
haven't you?
No.
No?
No, I found the videos that I sent you were somebody else's.
They were somebody else's. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think makes it like that, JJ? Is there any history,
There's
curse
tons
or
of-
anything like that? Or is it literally just the amount of death that has taken there over time that gives it that feel?
A few things.
Well,
So-
I would interject this point before JJ starts. I'm sorry, JJ. Is if you look at the deadly sins, one of the main deadly sins is shedding innocent blood. At any time, any place sheds innocent blood, as in like the Pharaoh of Egypt, or even in the New Testament where we see that Mary and Joseph had to flee to Egypt because of
Herod,
Rome. Yeah. Anytime that you see the shedding of innocent blood, that land will be cursed. And I'll just stop there and hand it back over to JJ.
So I think it's a combination of things, at least in terms of Aokigahara, which literally means, sea of trees in Japanese.
Yeah.
The land is essentially volcanic ash and glass. It's just everywhere, and that makes the trees grow extremely dense. Now, to the point where, you're 20 feet away from a major highway and you can hear nothing. It's just an impenetrable sound barrier. But two, it is just the vast history of death that this area has to it. They say that, villages that were around Aokigahara, if they did not have enough food to feed everybody, then they would sacrifice the infirm and the elderly. They would just take them out into the forest, dump them, and then come back.
Right.
And now it is the second most popular suicide site in the world, next to the Golden Gate Bridge.
Wow. And that speaks about a curse upon the land there, JJ.
Yeah, and at this point, it's just self-perpetuating.
Yeah,
at this point, definitely. I would agree. There's been so much death there over time that it's just that kind of a draw.
It's permeated into the land.
Yeah, and you can find
melded into it.
And you can find a smaller effect of that same thing around in Itabashi at the site where the Sunshine 360 building is built, because it was an execution ground for war criminals. And violent crap took place there. And now it's a building that has a world-class aquarium in it, and a Urenji, an amusement park, and yet you still get horrible stories of encounters at that location. And I think that's just another case where death has permeated the place so heavily that it will never let its grasp go.
Guys, that brings up another question. Now, me being who I am, I know what I would say. Okay? But I want to hear what you guys have got to say about this. So we got this place that is so impermeated with suicide and murder and taking your own lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And JJ just explained this whole place about Japan. He even mentioned the Golden Gate Bridge, which I don't have a lot of knowledge on that. But however, the question that I have is why? Why did it become? And there's a method to my madness, okay? Why did it become such a place of death? And what needs to happen to combat that?
Well, the Golden Gate Bridge is an easy one, right? Because
I don't know a lot about it.
Well, it's so high up, you have no chance really of surviving.
Yeah.
So
but why is that such a place of? Is that the only reason why?
It's because the bridge itself is the method.
It's easy to get out there. I mean, you can. Every time I've gone to San Francisco, I've rented a bicycle and biked across the Golden Gate Bridge.
You can walk. Yeah.
How high is it?
Oh, easily 300 feet.
Yeah. I was going to say 200, but it's
very.
Hitting the water. High. Hitting the water would be like hitting
concrete.
Concrete then. Okay. So what?
But that's the question. The question is what's the draw there, right? Why? And that's what I was kind of asking, right? Is there some sort of original starting point? And I guess JJ, you were suggesting that the lack of resources for a village may be what started that. They would take the people and they would wander off into the woods.
Right.
And in fact, I remember hearing stories when I was younger about, the Japanese, the elderly would walk off into it on their own.
Yeah, that's true
because
as well.
they were taking resources from the family and they wanted the younger to survive.
Yeah, because in Japan to this
It's the honor
day,
thing.
the focus is not upon the individual; it's the focus upon the community.
Right.
And whatever's going to make the community the best is what people strive for. But that in suicide, it's a very legitimate self-expression there.
The Golden Gate Bridge at the midpoint, it's 265 feet above the mean sea level.
Yep.
Plenty enough to kill you.
Definitely.
So let me just blurt out a thought concerning, how do you say that particular force, JJ?
Aokigahara.
Aokigahara. And I'm not good at pronouncing Japanese words, but I mean, my mind is putting together this idea of over time when they would bring these elderly people there to die, and probably people who were simply taking resources, you know, maybe people who were infirm or unable to work. It's like it would be a place where a beckoning entity of death would form. Mm-hmm. Where, and I'm thinking of something, you know, really like an entity that if there are people in the area who are craving death, come to me, find comfort, find your home, find a place of rest. And of course, once again, there's no evidence for any of that, but that's what it feels like to me.
Oh, and in modern times, people will go off and they will bring camping equipment until they get the courage to actually commit the deed. So these are not quick things.
No. And I suppose at least some of them change their mind and leave. But I've seen a number of documentaries where they will go through there and they will find bodies.
Oh, yeah. In fact, they used to do it a lot more frequently than they do now. But after the pandemic, then it would be once every 6 months they would do a body search around the entire forest, which is like 32 kilometers in length. So it's quite an undertaking all the way around. But I was going to say something else, but I can't think of it. Go ahead.
I think you do have a situation where death and potentially a lot of it can open, you know, some people would say a portal, I don't know about all that, but can attract demonic activity, which could attract further death. And I don't know, I've seen, you know, I've been to a couple of battlefields and where there's been lots of death. And when I think the two biggest, which is, you know, Gettysburg and Antietam. And those are night and day to me. Gettysburg feels like a fairly normal place. It's beautiful on the battlefield. You know, the rolling hills around it, the trees, the fields. And yeah, there's paranormal activity. There's places that are haunted and, you know, field hospitals and buildings there in the town and all of that. But Antietam feels dark. You go walk that battlefield and you compare that the way it feels to where you are in Gettysburg, and it is night and day. And I won't say it is as bad as what you experienced in Aokigahara, JJ, but it's an uncomfortable feeling. And I think, I can't remember if there was more people killed in Gettysburg than Antietam. Either way, they're two major, massive battles, lots of loss of life. One definitely feels more negative than the other.
Why do you think that is?
I have no idea. There have been people who have talked about seeing a dark demonic spirit in Antietam over the battlefield. I think part of it may be Antietam is very concentrated where the death happened. Gettysburg happened in a bunch of battles.
Bunch of battles, yeah.
Bunch of battles over those days, right? What, 3 days long or something? And Antietam, I've biked, you can do a bike tour of the battlefield. We did it with the Boy Scouts. It was really cool. They walk you through or bike you through the battle from start to finish. And right in the middle of all of it, you've got the Bloody Lane, I think they call it, which is where the Confederate soldiers decided to pile up 2 mounds along a road and fight outwards so that they would have cover. And that did not work out well for them because they got it on both sides. And, basically once they couldn't keep up, the Union soldiers came up to the top of the mounds and just killed everybody inside, in between, in that lane. And so you have really concentrated amount of death,
Right.
in a fairly small area over a long period of time. That's the only thing that I can think of that is really different about it. But I don't know. But you probably have, more death in well, I don't know. I say that more death in Gettysburg than Aokigahara, but I don't know about that given the amount of time. I think what's different about the forest is the repeated over and over again deaths.
Well, and it's also people who are running away from life. They do not want to be alive anymore.
Oh yeah, in fact, there's a ton of Japanese horror stories about this, and I think some documentaries in which people will form suicide pacts online, and they're complete strangers. They will meet, somebody will have a car, they pile into it, they go out to the forest, and they don't know each other. They don't want to know each other. They are just there to help facilitate everyone's death. And it's heartbreaking, but it is what it is.
That's amazing. I cannot give any type of excuse for someone taking their own life unless, y'all have heard me say this before, we never know the mental state of someone.
Sure. You never do.
And that's the only thing that we need to remember is, well, I remember actually the topic. I think it was the very first Ending the Curse episode that we ever had about suicide. It was, we're not God. So we don't know. We don't know what people think. We don't know what they're going through. We don't know if they're on some type of medication. We don't know anything. But the point is that a life was lost for I'm just going to say for basically a not a good reason.
Yeah.
And
no
and just leave it at that. But it's amazing to me that back to the original topic, that the land, and that's the point that I'm trying to make, can make such an effect on a person to cause them to do certain things. And I think that's the point that JJ was trying to make as well.
Well, I think there's...
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, when you think about the demonic, and when you think about possession, and the ultimate goal of suicide, to get the possessed to kill themselves, right? To take their own life. It would not surprise me at all for something demonic to be attracted to that type of death to start with.
I agree.
Right? And
I agree.
And so claiming that area as an area that, they act in or whatever.
Well,
Not pleasant.
in the huge paranormal topic listing, there is a topic. It's a quote from Camus. It says, "Suicide is the only true philosophical problem."
Really?
Yeah. Which I've always thought was just maybe one of the most depressing sentences ever written by anyone. But I can understand what he's talking about. In that a healthy human mind generally loves being alive.
True.
Because there are, even in bad times, I mean, there are places where tremendous joy can be found. But I also know people who seems to have totally lost that ability to connect with joy. I mean, I've been close to that myself a number of times in life. And I'm still here. and I'm glad about that on a daily basis.
As are we.
But
Yeah.
Fellas, I've got to bow out.
You got to bow out, sir. Well, JJ, thank you. And I'm sorry that I was so verbose.
No.
No.
I've been dying to hear that story, and I'm very glad that you took the chance to tell that. Thank you, my friend.
Absolutely.
It's getting easier. But
That will wear you out in a heartbeat.
it does.
I can imagine.
But at least but I'm better than I was with Bert. With Bert, I was just
Yeah.
trembling. Didn't like that. So
Well, I think it was appropriate for the final episode for the season.
I agree.
you guys got anything else you want to talk about?
I got one last question.
Yeah, please.
I want to go back to the dingoes in Australia.
Yeah.
To have a brindle, doesn't one have to mate with something else?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I mean, well, there's nothing else. Well,
Could
there be Dingylacines?
I don't know in what context it was mentioned. I don't know who said it or whoever. Somebody said maybe it was a brindle dingo. I said a brindle.
Yeah, that's what they call them, brindle dingoes.
You can't have a brindle without some kind of.
So it's got to be a crossbreeding of some kind.
Yeah. A domestic dog versus a dingo.
Well, there are domestic dogs. I mean, all through North Carolina, you've got, coy wolves and coy dogs and, wolf dogs and all
But
kinds.
we're talking about the desert, man. I mean,
Yeah, there's not much out there.
I know that's the only reason why. When I heard it, I don't know who brought it up, but I had to write it down. Brindle dingo.
You're not. I brought it up because I said that people have told me that I saw a brindle dingo.
Okay.
And no, I didn't say brindle dingo.
How would that be?
Well, there are dingoes all around. There are dingoes in that part of Australia, but not very many.
Yes, but brindle. That's the point.
Yeah.
Well,
brindle.
and look, I'm looking at these photos of the thylacine, and that's not a brindle look,
No.
right? You're talking stripes.
Stripes.
Right.
There's no question.
Like a brindle cat, the domestic cat that's brindle looking that comes from a bobcat and a regular cat way on down the line somewhere.
Well, they're not just stripes. They're very specific kinds of stripes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pattern that you can recognize from a long way away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's very unique.
It's a very unique pattern.
Brindle is more subtle.
Yeah, many pit bulls look like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, they've got that kind of coloring.
Hello, this is Cedric Dankwell Smythe. I've had several requests lately, several questions. Cedric, what is your middle name? Well, I can simply say I don't have one, but I actually do. My full name is Cedric Wulfric Dankworth Smythe. Cedric Wulfric Dankworth Smythe. I've got to tell you, that's truly the name of nobility. Wulfric means wolf ruler, and I am. When the wolves come around, they bow, they scrape, they assume submissive postures, because they know that I'm Cedric Wulfric Dankworth Smythe, undisputed ruler of wolves. I haven't been to Australia in quite a while, but I wonder if Dingylacines would behave the same way. Cedric Wulfric Dankworth Smythe, ruler of wolves and Dingylacines. Oh, I like it. The lads of the Paranormal Rundown, the gang of nerds, very much would like your input. So please, write to them at feedback@paranormalrundown.com. I guarantee you they can all read. I realize it's a bit surprising, but actually they're rather good at it. Wonders indeed never cease. All music heard on the Paranormal Rundown is either by Lobo Loco, computer-generated using smart sound, or in the public domain. Any media clips used are used under the protection of the Fair Use Doctrine. Avalon Leanne Dankworth Smythe has gone off to summer camp for creepy little girls. She's having a blast. So stay tuned for Season 2, Episode 1 of the Paranormal Rundown. Avalon will be back, I'll be back, Father Michael Birdsong will be back, Vic Romanson will be back, JJ will be back, and our friend Dave Griffith, will clearly be back. Plus, we have a whole new cadre of guests coming. It's going to be an exciting time. I look forward to seeing you at the next Paranormal Rundown event.